Over to the Big 12, Arizona State 2-point favorite against Iowa State, total of 49.5. David, you said you're a Cyclone fan. Are you a Cyclone alum?
No, my dad is. So like I'm an Oklahoma alum, but I grew up in Nebraska of all places, so we liked a lot of teams. But no, he's Iowa State alum, and like I was just always growing up watching them a lot, and there's like a lot of lean years there. So I'm a big Matt Campbell believer and all that, and it's nice. I mean what they're doing this year, it's like I think the first 10-win season they've ever had. It's like for like their second conference championship game they've ever been in. I mean it's kind of a historical run, and I mean it's a good team. I've watched a lot of their games. I think they're the better team in this game. I think didn't it open like they were like a 1-point favorite or something, and it quickly moved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, I guess all the sharp money's going on Arizona State, and I kind of get it. But having watched these games, I mean, they shouldn't have lost that Tech game. That Tech game was kind of a choke job, and then they deserved to lose that Kansas game. I mean, Daniel's brother is just, but in all these other games, like they've really done a very good job of kind of like dominating where they need to, like dominating, between the hashes. Like they just look like the better team. But for some reason, they've just like let these teams like stay in it. I mean, that Utah game is like a perfect example. I mean, Utah's not a good team, but Iowa State should have won that game by like 17, 21 points. But they somehow managed to give up like a punt block for a touchdown, like interception for a touchdown, all the stuff that like just shouldn't have happened. And I'm not saying like trust me, there's like a lot of skill on like not turning the ball over, but there's just some like really weird things that they need to clean up, and it almost kind of cost them in that K-State game as well. I mean, there's just all these like kind of frustrating moments there. So I mean, Iowa State always has the ability to implode and self-implode. I think they're the better. I just think they're the better team here. I mean, they got some like really good wide receivers that nobody's talking about. That running game's like solid enough, and that defense, the defense is like really really disciplined. I mean, it's not like the sexiest defense to watch ever, but I still think they're ranked number one in the Big 12. Even after kind of like a couple of the letdowns the past couple of weeks. And I think they'll be fine. Like the run defense is a bit worrisome. But I think it opened where it should have been. I mean, I think this should have been them as a slight favorite or a pick 'em, and I still kind of have them biases aside. I still kind of have it as a pick 'em. So I mean, if you're giving me, what do you show? I've been seeing like 2.5 most of the week. Is that what it's still at? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I think it got as high as 2, but at Bet365, a flat 2.
okay, so it came back a little bit. No, give me the two, and I'm really excited for the game. I mean, it's the other thing I will mention too is like, and I think this is kind of important as well, and like them kind of like blowing these leads and like having their back against the wall late, like needing Rocco to lead like game winning drives. Like I think it is notable, right, that when you put these players through these situations where it's like you have to execute on this 2-minute drive to win the game, otherwise your season's over. I think it does help you a bit in these conference championship games, and I feel like they've been through it a bit more than Arizona State, so maybe that slight nod to the experience factor there as well. But I'm super excited to watch this game.
Quick follow up for me, and more just a general principle question. When a novice bettor hears, okay, you have an edge towards X team and their plus money, and it's essentially a dead number. Now, you could argue 2 points. I mean, it's a dead number, NFL, college football. So, where is your decision making at when you're taking the 2 points? Variance in play for sure. I'm on your side with that of the equation, but how do you go about that thought process?
Well, I mean, honestly, like I prefer the money line at this point on it, but like again, like you come on these shows and sort of, I think like it's good to focus on like the two main markets, right? Like sides and totals, and we could sit here all day on
Okay,
like
so you would take the
props.
money line.
Oh yeah, I would take the money line, but even with two, I was thinking about there's like a lot of controversy with some guy on another show talking about how like two is a key number in the NFL, and it's not. Like it's fallen to like a
Right.
few times a year. The Rob Pizzola was on the other side of it being like two is not a key number, and like you even saying this is ridiculous. So anyways, you guys can search that up yourself. So I don't think it is a key number. I mean, in college, like I don't know though. I mean, in college, could it be a little bit? I mean, with these funky
The
overtime
overtime
rules, what we
rules
saw,
makes it
yeah,
interesting.
like you have to go for two, and It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, it sounds so stupid, and I know it's like so rare, but like when these games go to overtime in college, with the way these rules are, I mean, you only got to go 25 yards. I mean, these things can go second overtime, third overtime, because I think on the second overtime you have to go for two, and then the third
Yeah.
overtime it just starts 2 point, 2 point, 2 points. So if you get to the third overtime, you're playing with house money there, and even that second overtime, a lot of teams win by two because they get that 2 point conversion, and then I don't know, like yeah, two can hit two if it's like a field goal game or 1 point game. And I don't know, like in these conference champion, maybe I'm talking myself into liking the points more than the money line, but I like the money line in this. But I don't know. I'll leave it to you guys. You guys are more the experts on it, but I am curious if like two actually holds a little bit more value in college than it does the NFL. To me, it
Well,
just feels that like first glance it would, but not
look
by
at,
much.
and I was on the wrong side of this on Monday Night Football, but Browns were down two to Denver. And that's not to say that it is a key number because it's not, but with variance in mind, it can always happen. So you want to take the points. You want to your point about overtime, Brett, where do you side on this end of the equation? And do you have a bet on this game?
I do, and actually, I'll just jump right to what that is. And I do like the points with Iowa State here. So I guess this is a positive of conference realignment, right? Like we're getting a first-time matchup, a couple of teams that are never in this, and they're playing for a direct spot in the college football playoff. Maybe a bye. If UNLV wins, definitely a bye. My biggest issue here with Arizona State is they lost Jordan Tyson, their top receiver. And when I say top receiver, I mean the receiver, because their next leading receiver on the team, Cam Scadaboo, which I'll talk about him in a minute here. But but Tyson had surgery. He's out. He's going to return to the team next year and probably be a stud. He actually led all of college football in November in receiving. So keep that in mind, that injury, in my opinion, does matter here. Now, Scadaboo's the lone go-to guy on a down-to-down basis, right? Their quarterback, Sam Levitt, he's actually been really strong. They plucked him from Michigan State. Not a lot of expectation on him. Steps up, and he plays really well this year. But what happens when you take away that number one, especially when you hit your stride in November? Then you lose that go-to guy. Now, all of a sudden, your leading receiver is a running back. Your second leading receiver is a tight end, right? And now you got to go to 3 or 4 to find your next receiver. Iowa State, on the other hand, boy, they got plenty of weapons. They have 2,000-yard receivers, Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins, just absolute dominant tandem. And I haven't even talked about the North Dakota State transfer that they have there that hasn't really gotten going this year because there hasn't been the opportunity for them since they've got two studs. Plus, they've got Abu Sama. I mean, still a strong running back. Rocco Beck, though, the one thing I do have to point out, he's been a little bit underwhelming, in my opinion, based on the precedent that he set last year, right? I expected him to be really, really strong this year, and he's been good, but nothing special, I don't think. Arizona State, of course, they're going to get the nod on defense. I do think this is a great spot, though, to fade Arizona State, because I think they're getting a little bit of a bump in rating from their blowout of Arizona. Let's be clear, guys. I don't care if that's a rivalry. Arizona quit. Right, like there's been rumblings about Fafita hitting the portal, which his dad came out and said, no, that's not true. But if it does ring true, maybe his heart wasn't in the game. It's just Arizona did not play that game with any sort of urgency whatsoever, and they got their doors blown off. So I don't know if that's necessarily a data point I want to use when assessing Arizona State. So the bottom line, Iowa State, they have more weapons. I think their defenses are pretty comparable on a down-to-down basis. Scadaboo's going to be able to run, no doubt about that. But when the game comes down to it, Levitt's going to have to find a guy to go to, and can he find that go-to guy? Maybe Scadaboo can do it on his own. If he does, that'd be amazing. He deserves some Heisman votes at the very least if he does win this game on the back of his shoulders. But there's just more to like with Iowa State, so I'm going to take them with the plus number.
One more thing for you. Do you think the market is just, and I understand your point about Arizona State having that key offensive injury, but just with Iowa State on both sides of the ball, running and defending the run, 99th in rushing success rate, 84th in rushing success rate allowed. So what if this game does turn into a negative game script and conversely a positive game script for the Sun Devils?
Well, Iowa State can still throw the ball better, and I trust them to be able to do that. So I do, like, if you had to give me a team that was in a negative game script that I like better, I like Iowa State in the negative game script better. Now, that said, if Scadaboo's running for 8.5 a carry and finishes with 122 and they salt away the time and, maybe has like almost 200 all-purpose yards and 3 touchdowns, I mean, Arizona State very well could win this game. If that's the case, go ahead and take under 49.5 as well. There's just more to like for Iowa State with me. And if you're looking at the EPA numbers and success rate numbers, their defenses are fairly comparable, of course, in different areas, but the net of it all is kind of similar.
I think the negative. I mean, it sounds like ridiculous. You're like, they actually should. The negative game script helps them, but actually, when you've seen Iowa State, like I think at their best is like when they're playing up tempo, aggressive, passing the ball a bit. I know that's not like unique to them or a very unique take at all, but I think they're fine there. I think they're more than comfortable doing it, and yeah, the run defense has been a bit of an issue, but they'll have them ready. I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, again, if they get down 17 points, like they're in deep crap. But down 7 and even like 10, right, in early third quarter and stuff. I don't think it's like going to be a huge thing that affects them. And but on like the flip side, I think this is a game too where I do think if they get Arizona State down 10, I think that I'm not super impressed with Arizona State's passing game coming into this game. And you had mentioned it, right, losing like the one kind of. I don't want to say he's like their only receiver, but he kind of is, right? And like now you've kind of limited it to like one playmaker who is a very good running back and a good running back. But again, like running backs can only do so much from the receiving game, right? Like, if they, if they're down 10, 8 minutes in the fourth quarter, 5 minutes in the fourth quarter, like is the running back is the guy that you can count on getting like big chunk plays? Like I don't think so. I don't think he is. So,
or if there's 2.5 minutes in the game and you're down a score, and you then take the ball out of his hands, and it has to be a Sam Levitt finding the next best guy through the air. I guess you could keep handing a Scadaboo, but that's a difficult proposition that I would not want to find myself in if I was Arizona State or a backer of Arizona State.
David, what's your dad going to do if Iowa State comes out on top here?
I mean, listen, they're retired. I mean, they're already talking about like going to all these like bowl games and stuff like that, like go to the Nebraska one and try to go to the Iowa State one. I mean, they'll definitely go to that Iowa State one. I mean, it'll be really interesting to see where that ends up, right? They're either gonna, it's like the playoffs so weird, man. Like they're either gonna end up with a road game or they're gonna get a first round bye, and like there's no in between. And because I think that's the case, right? Because if it like doesn't matter if they win the conference, they don't get a home game, right? Yeah, I mean, they won't be top. They'll be like the 11 seed or 10 or 12.
Right.
They'll go. My dad will definitely go. I mean, he'll go with his roommates. I mean, they're all pretty pumped. So I mean, it'd be a bummer to see them do this. And like Campbell in those years there, he's always done like really well, but they've always kind of like choked, when they had a chance to like go that next step. And I think like this is the year. I think this is the year they get it done. And like, listen, them making the playoffs would be huge for the program. Them like somehow getting a first round bye if UNLV pulls it off, like even bigger. So now I'm gonna be watching it, texting with him. Quite a bit as well, but they want to go to the Nebraska bowl game too, so like they'll be traveling around.
Well, if you have no stake on this game and you're watching or listening, at the very least cheer on David's dad. That's what we've learned from this conversation.